Yeah, welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let us first begin with the headlines. Typhoon Chaba, the strongest tropical storm to hit Korea in more than a decade, lets its presence be known down south, taking lives, destroying property, and disrupting transportation. Front and center at the parliamentary audit are questions about two foundations that raised a whopping $65 million in just a couple of months. Korea Sale Festa is proving most successful. It's luring bargain hunters from here and abroad and giving retailers double-digit jumps in sales. Typhoon Chaba, the strongest storm Korea has seen in more than a decade, has caused some major damage along the country's southern coast. I return to our Kim Jian for the latest. Jian, I understand we're getting some updates on lives lost because of the natural disaster.
Well, Daniel, what we know so far is that the typhoon has claimed 4 lives, including an elderly woman who fell from the roof of her house and a firefighter who was on duty. It's caused a number of accidents as well, including a crane at a construction site in Busan that collapsed in the wind. Not far away in the city of Ulsan, flooding halted production at the Hyundai Motor Factory and a flash flood advisory has been issued. Residents downstream from a dam on the Taewagang River were forced to evacuate so the dam could release water to prevent further flooding. The General Insurance Association of Korea says damages incurred from Typhoon Chaba are estimated at nearly $9.3 million so far, as more than 950 automobiles were reported to have been submerged and some 210,000 households have experienced power cuts. Fortunately, the typhoon is weakening and transportation is up and running again in some areas, including the KTX express trains on the Gyeongbu line. Flights into and out of Busan, Gimhae, and Jeju are now back on schedule as well. However, sea routes for passenger ships and fishing boats are still under restrictions in these areas due to safety reasons. The typhoon is now over the East Sea and is expected to arrive in Japan by Thursday morning. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Jian, thank you for those updates. Moving on, Korea's parliament is back on track for a second day after a week of inactivity sparked by ruling Saenuri Party boycott. Today, lawmakers continue with their regular audit of the government. For more on the main talking points, here's our Park Ji-won.
Wednesday's parliamentary audit session was given over to a series of corruption allegations surrounding the Mir and K-Sports foundations and the government's role in approving their establishment. Opposition lawmakers grilled officials from the related government agencies to get to the bottom of how the two relatively new foundations could have raised about $65 million in donations in just about a month or two after their launch. The contributions were known to have come from several of the country's major conglomerates, but it's not known if there were any favors exchanged in the course of the foundation's establishment. The main opposition Minju Party vowed to dig deeper into the allegations, pledging to keep investigating even after the audit wraps up on the 19th. The opposition parties also submitted a motion to the Parliament Secretariat Wednesday afternoon requesting an investigation by a special prosecutor into the case of an activist who died recently. The man had been in a coma for several months after having been knocked down by a police water cannon during an anti-government protest last November. The opposition parties are hoping to discover whether the police use of the water cannon was excessive or illegal and lay to rest any remaining controversies over the case. The proposal needs to win a parliamentary majority to succeed. If approved, the investigation could start sometime after the audit is finished. Meanwhile, ruling Saenuri Party leader Lee Jung-hyun, who's in the hospital after a week-long hunger strike sparked by a feud over the assembly speaker, is reportedly recovering quickly and could return to work as soon as next week. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The Korean economy was also under the microscope at the audit. The finance ministry said much needs to be addressed in order to secure stronger growth. Shin Se-min has the details.
A diagnosis that continuous fluctuations in Korea's economic indicators may signal the country's economy is not on a stable path to recovery. According to a report submitted to the National Assembly for audit, the Finance Ministry said the country's economy is facing weak recovery momentum amid looming uncertainties at home and abroad, further weighed down by an unpredictable local financial market. Monthly figures also support that statement. Korea's exports dropped nearly 6% on year in September, backtracking from a long-awaited improvement the month before. The country's August current account surplus also fell to its lowest in the past 4 months. On the heels of dismal data, the Finance Ministry said it plans to continue with its expansionary fiscal policy to prop up the local economy after injecting an extra budget worth nearly $10 billion. A nationwide shopping festival dubbed Korea Sale Festa, which is currently underway, is also aimed at bolstering sagging consumer sentiment. To improve the country's growth capacity, the government rolled out detailed guidelines to enhance competitiveness in the sectors of steel and petrochemicals. It'll also push forward with its ongoing corporate restructuring drive in the shipping and shipbuilding industries. In terms of the heavy household debt burden that zipped past $1.1 trillion as of the end of the second quarter, Korea's top economic policymaker was not too pessimistic. During the audit session, Finance Minister Yoo Il-ho said that although the size of household debt may be significant, quality-wise, it's not that bad. But he added that the ministry is working to devise additional means to curb the debt figures, as tighter control on the loan-to-value and debt-to-income ratios does not seem to be sufficient in tackling further debt growth. 신세민, 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korea's defense minister was grilled by lawmakers as part of the audit. The focus was on North Korea's provocations and the terminal high-altitude area defense system. Kim Hyun-bin tells us more.
Korea's parliamentary audit moved on to the Ministry of National Defense on Wednesday, where lawmakers mostly focused on the deployment of the U.S. Advanced Missile Defense System, THAAD, to the Korean Peninsula. Defense Minister Han Min-gu was asked why the Lotte Sky Hill golf course was chosen to host the THAAD battery. He said it was selected after a thorough consideration of its operational interoperability, infrastructure, as well as THAAD's operational capabilities, among other factors. And the golf course site in Seongju County was deemed most suitable. The Defense Minister announced his decision on the location last week, some 2.5 months after Seoul and Washington announced their original pick, the Songsan anti-aircraft missile base in Seongju. That choice was strongly protested by local residents. Mr. Han said the decision on THAAD's location is final. The system is scheduled to be deployed before the end of next year, with Seoul and Washington to iron out the details during the annual security consultative meeting later this month in Washington, D.C. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Another possible high-profile defection from North Korea, an official who played a key role in looking after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's health, reportedly defected last month. If confirmed, it will be the latest in a series of high-profile defections from the regime. Connie Kim reports.
A North Korean official stationed in Beijing has reportedly defected with his family. If confirmed, it would potentially provide further evidence of the growing instability within the regime. A source familiar with North Korea said the official from the Public Health Ministry was responsible for purchasing medicine and medical equipment used for Kim Jong-un, his family, and senior officials at the North Representative Office in Beijing. The official reportedly fled with his wife and daughter late last month. Early reports on Wednesday seem to suggest the official asked to defect to Japan, but Japan's foreign ministry has denied the news, saying it does not know of a North Korean hoping to seek asylum in the country. The source also said there is a need for further investigation into reports of the defection of another official from the same Beijing office. South Korea's Unification Ministry said it cannot confirm either of the defections. If confirmed, however, the defections would be surprising, especially given North Korea's close ties to China. In addition, there is growing speculation about how the officials could have escaped as Pyongyang installed a massive intelligence corps in China and Russia to keep tabs on officials stationed abroad after the defection of a North Korean diplomat from the UK over the summer. The presidential office of Cheongwada said it is monitoring the situation, considering the position of the defector in question.
Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting in Seoul. Typhoon Chaba, the strongest storm Korea's seen in more than a decade, has caused some major damage along the country's southern coast. We have our Kim Ji-yeon on the line with more. Ji-yeon, so this typhoon has indeed proved deadly. I understand it's also caused quite a bit of property damage. What do we know at this point?
Well, Devin, what we know so far is that the typhoon has claimed 4 lives, including an elderly woman who fell from the roof of her house and a firefighter who was on duty. And it's caused a number of accidents, including a crane at a construction site in Busan that collapsed in the wind. Not far away in the city of Ulsan, flooding halted production at the Hyundai Motor Factory, and a flash flood advisory has been issued. Residents downstream from a dam on the Taewagang River were forced to evacuate so the dam could release water to prevent further flooding. The General Insurance Association of Korea says damages incurred from Typhoon Chaba are estimated at nearly $9.3 million so far, as some 980 automobiles were reported to have been submerged, and some 210,000 households have experienced power cuts. President Park Geun-hye urged swift restoration efforts and response measures to minimize damages in the affected areas, while the Ministry of Public Safety and Security says it plans to come up with detailed plans for aid by the end of the month. Fortunately, the typhoon is weakening and transportation is up and running again in some areas, including the KTX express trains on the Gyeongbu line. Flights into and out of Busan, Gimhae, and Jeju are now back on schedule as well. However, sea routes for passenger ships and fishing boats are still under restrictions in these areas due to safety reasons. The typhoon is now over the East Sea and is expected to arrive in Japan by Thursday morning. Back to you.
Okay, thanks for that, Ji-yeon. In other news, Korea's parliament was back to work Wednesday for a second day, following a week-long boycott by the ruling party. Lawmakers continued with their regular audit of the government, looking closely at alleged corruption at 2 civic organizations and a case of alleged excessive force used by the police. Park Ji-won has this story.